Welcome back to the alignment. Today we're going to be talking a bit about the masculine and feminine energies and a kind of spiritual conception of these two very ephemeral and often misunderstood notions, I feel.
Yes,
I think as a sort of simple introduction, we should understand that we are all, as organisms, comprised of both masculine and feminine energies. And in order to attain a kind of spiritual realization and actualization, we have to come to understand these forces as they act within our bodies and the balance of such forces. So I think that will comprise the general goal of today's episode.
yes,
I feel we should
yes.
sort of dance around that and see what comes up and that sort of exploration. But what sort of thoughts do you have to impart to the listener?
Um, I feel like the topic that we're talking about today is a really, really important one because we speak about the divine energy, masculine as an energy and feminine as an energy. And I feel like the energetical information runs very short in the masses currently. And I look at it as simple as yin and yang, and that exists in all of us. It is not to say that the feminines only resonate with the feminine aspect. You also have to develop a masculine sort of aspect within yourself. And yeah, I want to know your thoughts on balancing energies between the masculine and the feminine in yourself.
Yeah. Um, well, I think first and foremost we should probably define for the listener what exactly is the yin and the
The
yang.
yang.
It's obviously a very central notion in Chinese philosophy. It points to the sort of mutually dependent and complementing polarities or energies. So the it's kind of looking at how opposites in reality are not truly opposite, rather they act in a concert. And you can see this understanding in the actual the symbol of the yin and yang, of the black and the white, and the shapes of how the white shape also contains a black dot
Dot
in,
in
and
it.
the
Yeah.
white section of the shape contains a black dot in to show that whilst we often describe them as separate, they are also intrinsically interconnected. So the to come into what exactly the yin and the yang mean. Often we call the yang aspect as the masculine, active, kind of engaged, forward thrusting kind of element of all of action. If we think about to our life, when we're in a more yang mode of being, we're in a very forward motion, a very thrusting motion. Obviously, to use an obvious sexual
Yeah.
example, in conception,
Yeah.
it is the masculine who thrusts, it's the masculine who enters into, and the feminine, the more yin
Receiver.
component
Yeah.
is it is the receiver, it is the more passive, receptive, and energy. And to come to your question of like, how do these aspects uh, affect my own life? Um, I suppose I was sort of introspect into how sort of my energies tend to sort of fluctuate and wane throughout the day. Um, when am I in a more active sort of acting mode of engagement versus a more of a rest, a stillness, a digesting kind of mode of being, where I'm sort of stepping back and kind of becoming, receptive to certain ideas, which is a more of a yin mode of being. I'll ask you the same question. How do these energies penetrate into your life and affect you?
Yes, I feel like for me, the yin and the yang was very difficult to balance initially because, one or the other is always dominating in most of us. We just don't know which one it is, but I think it starts with identifying if you're more active like a yang, if you're in a masculine energy. Masculine energy basically means you're more driven, you're more action oriented. You have difficulty receiving things because that's not something that comes very easy to you. most women nowadays that are working are more prone to being in their masculine energy. Not to say that they are masculine in nature, but when you're exerting so much force constantly, relentlessly, working a 9 to 5, that can be termed as being overactive in a masculine energy. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is amazing, but in balance. Everything needs to be in moderation, right? So I had a journey with incorporating my yin, because I myself was mostly in a very driven masculine form of energy, until I realized, like, oh wait, there's something a little imbalanced. Like, I feel like I'm not very good at receiving or just sitting still or letting things flow, and I was always very drawn to control and, making sure things are precise and proper and in this, proper little box, but as I learned more deeper aspects within myself, I cultivated my yin by reducing my urge to act, and by accepting things or receiving things um, that was beyond me. Like, I wouldn't if someone offers, let's say, to help me out with something that I'm working on, ideally the masculine energy would go like, no, 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 I'm independent, I can do this by myself. Absolutely, by all means you can. But then I started incorporating an aspect of more like, oh, actually, yes, I will take your help. There is nothing wrong in this world with accepting help. And I feel a lot of people, not just feminines or masculines, a lot of genuine people suffer with accepting help. And the truth is, sometimes it's difficult to do it all by yourself, and that you can't fight with that. And it is okay with asking for help, asking for assistance, guidance, because sometimes you need that. And the second I let myself surrender, without my ego, without feeling ashamed or feeling bad that, oh, I need help, without having any impositions upon myself, I started cultivating my yin, because the yin is a pure devotional ability to surrender and receive. So now I feel like I am somewhat at a balanced state. But yeah, I've had a journey incorporating that.
Yeah. So I getting a lot of different sort of
Threads,
ideas
yeah.
as you were sort of talking about that. There's lots of different things we can shoot off on. I want to talk about a bit about that urge to do, that urge to create, that can often come into excess in many people, particularly in our culture where we are almost perpetually busy, we're perpetually stimulated, and there's rarely the opportunity to really cultivate that stillness and that more receptive yin aspect of our being, because we live in a very, I suppose, you may can call it whatever it is, a very capitalistic society, in which we're constantly measured by what we do,
Yes.
and consequently, because we are valued by what we do, what we can produce, um, we come to limit and reduce the value of rest, of stillness, of digesting, because we do not see the economic utility of that.
Yes, it's considered unproductive.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
considered unproductive, which is a perversion, really, because we all need sleep, we all need rest. In fact, if you do not rest, your actual productivity will become hindered as a
Exactly.
result. So I think there is a kind of an a dysregulation or a lack of balance within the collective consciousness with regards to how we balance the urge to create with, of course, the necessity of rest and stillness.
The yin.
We need to come to value the yin aspect. We need to come to value those more feminine ways of being. Like you
Yes.
said, you're talking about how a lot of females have experienced this kind of
Yes.
dysregulation with regards to balancing the masculine components of
Yes.
themselves and the feminine components of themselves. Um,
Yeah.
the car horn was
We have this
confirming what we were
thing,
saying.
yeah, we have this thing where if we talk and there's a car honk that goes on, we consider that a sign from the universe, as confirmation,
Yeah,
like a honk, like, yes, you're saying the right thing, and it just honked. So
exactly.
yeah,
And but
that's confirmation.
obviously in India, there's a lot of confirmation. And
That's true.
but
But
um,
yeah.
but yeah, to come back, you know, yeah. So I think balancing that rest and action is of central importance. And I think as well, particularly for the masculine, as I'm a masculine, um, coming as a masculine, coming to accept that feminine aspect of oneself is of central importance. Of course, there isn't to some, some people feel that, some masculine feel that they need to overemphasize that masculine
form, that
form
demeanor.
of themselves. They need to, need to fluff it up. They need to present themselves in this sort of way. They feel kind of a sense of shame or a sense of criticism that would result, whether from themselves or other people, if they were to adopt or engage in more sort of feminine aspects of being, like,
which is important.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we need balance. It's not one or the other, right? We need balance in both.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, if you see certain depictions of, I think it's Shiva, where he is in fact or
split into
depicted
half
as an androgynous being, which is speaking about how, nature at its fundamental is neither masculine nor feminine. It is androgynous, I suppose.
Yes.
And whilst we may have an XX or XY chromosome, we may be capable of creating sperm or producing eggs. In this particular form, you are never going to be totally
one or the other.
One or the other. There's a kind of a
unity,
a unity and a bifurcation, like a yin and a yang. There is a unity in that. Whilst there is a differentiation, there is an essential unity when you get to
between both. Yes,
the core of it, and that can be difficult to really wrap oneself's head around.
But that's the part, I believe, of a spiritual journey where people embark themselves upon, okay, hey, how do I balance my masculine with my feminine? How do I balance my feminine with my masculine? That's the entire point of bringing both aspects into absolute harmony. That can also be done through kundalini awakenings. People have a lot of variations to that, but I believe one of the main prospects of a kundalini awakening is the unification of a divine masculine aspect, energy, in terms of energy and aspect, a drive, and the feminine, the receiver, the devotion, the artistry, the creation, together, and that forms the snake rising up together. It's two combining into one. So that was a symbol that I was very drawn to when I was on my journey. But yeah, that can be summed up as the essence of what that awakening is. You awaken to your true potential when you merge both aspects of self into one, because there is only one. We divide, but source is one, all is one, unity is one. There is no division, there is no twos, there is only one. That was a very mathematical reference, but people will understand the point.
Yeah, you're talking about.
It's very simple. Yeah,
the essential illusion of separation.
Yes.
In how, at its core, there is no true border you can place in reality with regards to this is me and this is the limit of me, and beyond that limit is what is not me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the ego does, is that it identifies something as
not me.
Yeah, it attaches itself to whether it's the body mind. This particularly, the ego is it's a skin encapsulated ego, and you are identified with this meat suit, and everything that surrounds you is not you. It's a lie. In every sort of mystical tradition, they point to that as essentially an illusion that has to be pierced through in order to realize awakening, or to realize the one. Yes, unfortunately, I'm very particular with my words, but I don't describe enlightenment as something that is attained, because attainment implies that you do not have it already.
Exactly.
That's why realization is a more appropriate
longer process.
Realization for me is a more appropriate verb to use, because it points to how you're just seeing what already is the case.
Yes.
You're not seeing something extra. Your reality doesn't change. You're basically just seeing reality as it is, without the sort of illusory lens and filters and perceptions that the ego often brings to reality as a result of karma, the past, history, learned habits, behaviors, all
Psychology.
these
Yes.
patterns. The weight of history, as I like to sort of
Yes.
describe it as. But that is a whole thread that we could probably talk about another time. To come back to the whole
Yeah.
conversation regarding the masculine and the feminine, I want
Yeah.
to ask you particularly,
Sure.
um, how do you experience a feminine energy, and how would you advise people on how to cultivate such an energy?
I love that because this was a very new experience for me to incorporate my true feminine. So talking a little bit more about my journey into the feminine aspect, I started doing things slower. Now this may sound very different, but yeah. So when you're in a masculine energy, you're in a very go 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 energy, and the feminine, you can think of her like water. It's a very very simple example, right? Water trickling down very slowly. It's flow. The flow does not rush. So I started embodying, in my head I had a mental notion of water and embodying qualities of water, because to me water was feminine. So a little trick that people can do, anyone can do it. It is not limited to the feminines alone. Anyone can do this to cultivate a yin energy, right? What you can do is you can think of something that is more feminine in nature, like water, or let's say softness, right? A quality, a characteristic of the feminine, the softness, the gentleness. So you can pick any object or anything in your mind that resonates as a feminine energy to you, right? In your head, you're creating a reality of that, and then you can start embodying qualities of that. For me, it was water. So I started moving like water, receiving like water, flowing like water. I started becoming very, very fluid in my body. I realized I was more comfortable moving around, just embracing my creative aspect, being more in an artistic flow without having any shame towards it, because the feminine does not shame. The feminine encourages and nurtures. It's a very nurturing, healing, motherly sort of energy. You can say kind of like very, very caring, like Gaia, like earth energy. It nourishes you fully, right? You want to take care of yourself, you want to take care of other people around you, because that is the nature of the feminine energy. Energy, mind you, again. But yeah, so I started blossoming. Usually, they say when a woman is stepped into her whole divine potential, into her healed feminine. There's wounded feminines, as most of the people know, and then there's a healed version of the feminine. It's literally like a flower blossoming. Because what that means is, that means something. What that means is you're allowing yourself to be who you are without any restriction. You're not forcing yourself to be this way or that way, or masculine or feminine. You're just letting it all be as you are, very softly. You're letting the unfolding happen very, very gently, without controlling the process. Letting go of control is a beautiful, very difficult but beautiful thing to accomplish within yourself, because control, structure, I want to do this way, rigidity, the container is masculine, but there's water inside that container, so water needs to know how to sort of flow, and it already knows that. When you drop the structure, when you drop the box, right, the box you're in, you start flowing. So flow, yeah. And I would also suggest engaging in more feminine activities, feminine energy activities, like painting or writing, something that takes time, something that is meditative for you, and something that allows you to get lost in that frequency, like your passion, something that brings your deeper desires onto your reality. Creations, engaging in creations that are slow and meditative. But Yeah, I would like to ask you the opposite as the masculine energy that how would you encourage people to develop a masculine aspect, because that's also very, very important to have structure as well. Remember, balance. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I'd say that my description of the cultivation of more masculine kind of energies, it will share various similarities with what you describe with regards to flow, particularly. I think flow is a kind of conscious state that points to the unification of both masculine and feminine energies. Although flow may be experienced slightly differently um, if you're more in a masculine dominated um, energy or a feminine dominated energy. You know, like the flow that a mother may enter into with their infant
yeah,
versus the flow that a masculine may enter into when they're playing
driven,
sport
yeah,
or fighting combat or something like that. Like martial arts is a very flow
state, yeah,
generating activity where you're very much in your body, very focused as a very exquisite concentration of your gaze in the activity that you're doing. It's very external. Um, I would I would regard a kind of the masculine energies as it is experienced in my life as a very forward going, energized, curious, and vital force. Um, it is very much looking out into the world and creating in the world. It is very active. Um, it is formulated by an idea of what to do, and then there is a kind of motivation that links your imagination into actualizing your imaginations in reality. Like
grounded,
you
yeah,
have an idea and you wish to create that idea in a very logical, sequential, structured manner. Um, for me, it's like and there's a very strong element of focus. There's a very strong element of drive. Um, like for me, like a very one sort of. I mean, I hesitate to call certain activities masculine, but the way I exercise, for example, lifting heavy weights, that's a very structured thing. I tend to do it like almost every day at a set time, and it's
discipline,
and there's a very and during the experience, like I'm not distracted. I'm very much
focused.
centered on that
Mm.
activity, and then I rest, and then it's all centered around that activity. I'm not getting distracted. I'm not. My mind isn't wandering. Perhaps I'll get certain downloads or insights whilst I'm doing it, but it's like there is an activity there, and my mind is very acutely fixated upon it. Like for me, when I was a kid, I used to play lots of video games, and video games are renowned for putting you into that state of flow. And I would tend to play lots more like masculine type of video games, whether it's like certain fighting games, shooter games, or sports games, or you know, activities which obviously this isn't to say that like feminine do not play these games, but they appeal more to those masculine kind of energies.
It's an
Obviously they
archetype,
do.
yeah,
It's an archetype,
yeah,
and and but they all would generate a state of flow. But the kind of flow that I would get into whilst playing, FIFA is probably different to the flow that like a 6-year-old girl would get from playing Nintendogs, for example,
yeah.
But they both generate flow, but they're tapping into different energies. My energy when was playing FIFA would be a very competitive, focused energy. I'll get very invested into the game.
Kind of
Probably
like football,
yeah, football.
like
Exactly, it's
football
football.
fans, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like I am a big football fan.
that's why
Like
I
I
made
do.
the reference
Yeah,
here.
exactly, and like and yeah, it's just tapping into and arousing different kind of energies. But it does all come down to flow. I feel, and flow is a very interesting conscious state to really tap into because I find that people who have more opportunities to step into flow in their lives, who do not experience a kind of fragmented, rigid kind of you know warped,
Blocks, yeah,
blocked
blocks,
consciousness.
yeah, literally,
Um,
yeah,
People who have more flow in their life naturally have more meaning, more fulfillment, and more, pleasure, bliss, and excitement in life. Because flow is essentially where you're losing yourself in a kind of ego dissolution kind of way. You're forgetting who you are, but you're becoming one with what you're doing.
Exactly.
In a way that you're dancing with reality. You're unveiling itself, and you're interested in it. And you're very curious into it. Like, I enter flow when I go down a big, when I'm deep in a book, or I losing myself in a Wikipedia binge or whatever. I find something a little, like, it's like sifting for gold sometimes, and I find a little nugget which arouses my curiosity, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I didn't expect to find this. Now I pull on that thread, and then time ceases to be a construct. I'm not conscious of the amount of time that is passing, because I'm just really there with it, and reality is just revealing itself to me in a very intrinsically pleasurable way.
Yeah.
But it's not a hedonistic pleasure. It's a pleasure that comes when you're like in alignment with reality.
With your passion, when you're in alignment to the things that you love, your passion, things that spark you up and light you up. So it's I think we spoke about our perspectives in a very similar manner, which I happen to notice. Like, you said it in your masculine energy way, and I said it in how I experience my reality in my way. But basically, you see, there's a unification here. He's talking about the same thing, I'm talking about the same thing, but the way we said it, that is exactly what is divine masculine energy and the divine feminine energy. And together, like literally together, there's a unification here that creates one harmony, and that can be called as peace, nirvana, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. The unification of these two is your answer. Whatever you're looking for, it's this is it.
It's a unification of seemingly apparent opposites. It's realizing that they are mutually interdependent. They both depend on and assume one another. Often in our culture, we have fallen for the illusion that the masculine and the feminine are truly separate things, that we can fully separate them. And it's nonsensical. But people believe that, because they'll believe anything these days. And but ultimately, we're trying to allow people to see the polarities as essentially one.
Yes. We are the living embodiments of that. If you follow the alignment by now, you've seen all our other videos, you know what we speak about. And if you're new here, this is what we're all about. So we strive to be an embodiment of the unification of these two divine energies into one. And we go out in the world spreading our unified energy. So our perspective is blended, and we are also twin flames. So that's kind of like a part of our purpose here currently. So that's just what we do.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to sort of sign off there.
Yeah.
Plenty for the listener to chew on.
And
I think we'll, conclude that there, and we'll leave the sort of various social media links for people who are interested in checking out what other various content we're sort of building up here. We're building up slowly, but we're getting into a bit of a rhythm here with it. But I think we'll say goodbye there.
We'll sign off then.
All right then.
Okay.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Adios.